Situated near the village of Thul, on the Red Sea coast to the north of Jeddah, King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, KAUST, is a source of pride for all Saudis and all those who value knowledge and research. It is certainly a realization of a great vision when the custodian of the two holy mosques, the late King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz, launched a project that he had been dreaming of for the last quarter of a century. It is a world-class co-educational research university that has brought together a number of learned men and women of various backgrounds from all around the globe to Saudi Arabia. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to invite to the stage Mr. Saoud Al-Salahi, the Conference Deputy Manager for Executive Affairs, who will introduce Professor Jollo Chameau, the President of KAUST.
Thank you. Here I am again. Welcome everybody in behalf of the Saudi Students' Conference organizing committees. To let you know, our conference is annually sponsored by a Saudi university, and our 8th conference is honored to be sponsored by King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, KAUST. I believe that all of us are proud of KAUST University as the dream of our King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz Al Saud. May Allah forgive him and have mercy on him at this moment. King Abdullah University of Science and Technology is a graduate research university of science and technology renowned by global benchmarks and rooted in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. KAUST is characterized by attracting and developing top talents from all over the world. It invests in people, the proven and the promising, helping them to fulfill their intellectual potential through scholarship and discovery. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my great pleasure to introduce Professor Jollo Chameau, who took office as the President of King Abdullah University of Science and Technology on the 1st of July 2013. Prior to joining KAUST, Professor Chameau was President Emeritus of the California Institute of Technology, Caltech, in the United States, which he led for 7 years. Caltech is one of the world's preeminent centers of instruction and research in engineering and science, as well as the home of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Throughout his career, he has been committed to fostering excellence in science and technology, as well as promoting a multidisciplinary approach to research and education. He encourages the development of programs in such areas as energy, medical science, and the environment, which can provide the dramatic scientific advances and new technology societies are seeking. He is also a strong champion of industry-university partnerships and the involvement of universities in economic development, including the creation of new businesses with an emphasis on advancing international opportunities for faculty and students. His research interests include sustainable technology, environmental geotechnology, soil dynamics, earthquake engineering, and the liquefaction of soils. He has received numerous awards for his research and contributions as an educator and academic leader. Chameau's industry and public service roles have included appointment to the boards of the Council on Competitiveness, John Wiley and Sons, MTS Systems, Safran, the Academic Research Council of Singapore, and the Advisory Committee of Inter-West Partners. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Chameau.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. It is a great pleasure and honor for me to join you this morning. I would like to thank first my friend and KAUST trustee, President Alice Gast, and the entire Imperial College team for their ongoing partnership with us, including co-sponsoring this conference. I should say, Alice, that listening to you, it's great to have you as a trustee, but I should appoint you as Chief Marketing Officer for KAUST. Thank you very much. Again, I would like to add to the thanks already expressed by Alice to thank the organizing committee of students who contributed their ideas and energy to the organization here, and to assure that all of you would have a great experience. Thank you also to the Scientific Society for Saudi Students and the Saudi Arabian Cultural Bureau for all of your work and support of those great students. Thank you very much. Alice also thanked the KAUST team, and I would like to thank the KAUST team, including a person who cannot be here today, Dr. Jean Fréchet, our Vice President for Research, who is recovering from some surgery and is with us in spirit, and was involved in all the details of the organization, and I'm very pleased to have some members of his team today with us. Before I begin my remarks, I would like to take a moment, as Alice already has done, to say a few words about the enduring vision of the late King Abdullah. He invested in education and science and technology as a mechanism to promote prosperity and economic growth. He had a vision of a highly educated society and a knowledge economy that would become a beacon of inspiration for generations to come. KAUST, you and all your fellow students across the world represents the King's vision, and you will fulfill it over time through your academic and professional achievements. Because of you, the students, the legacy King Abdullah will have a long-lasting impact on the kingdom and the world. And I think it is the most important legacy is likely you, the young people who are studying here in other parts of the world. Now, let me go to my talk, to my remarks. Today, I would like to share with you my perspective on the ingredients that drive excellence in research universities around the world, and especially focusing on science and technology universities, which reflect my own experience. Those universities play an integral role in innovation, economic development, and prosperity of a region or a nation. Now, this, in fact, the importance and the influence of science and technology universities on driving prosperity and economic development, in addition to knowledge, started a lot, especially in the US, but as well as major parts of the world, in the 19th century, because of the emergence of mechanized agriculture, transportation, and industry, the Industrial Revolution. Many universities, like those in the US, were created at a time with the explicit intent to enable and support industry and economic development. Over time, over the past 150 years or so, the landscape of science and technology universities evolved very significantly into an innovation ecosystem where they're supposed not only to educate and train highly qualified graduates, but also to support and create new industry. And there are examples of that in different parts of the world. Obviously, the main example that people always cite is the one of Silicon Valley, where you have, obviously driven by universities like Stanford and Berkeley, but you also have innovation engines in other parts of the world, including the Cambridge Science Park, which was established many years ago and is still thriving in the UK here. So universities more and more, especially when they're focused on science and technology, play a stronger role than simply educating great scientists and engineers. Now, one can argue that science and technology program will make positive contributions to the economy irrespective of their focus or irrespective, essentially, of how good they are. The single fact that their graduates find employment, even in difficult times, in a 2008-2010 major recession in the world, most science and engineering graduates were still finding jobs. At least it was my impression in California, where when the unemployment was above 10%, corporations were looking every day to hire more scientists and engineers. So you can make a case that they do a great job irrespective of their focus or irrespective of the quality of their program. However, the degree of effectiveness, I think, vary a lot, and their impact on innovation and on prosperity vary a lot. And so let me now try to highlight why the success can vary from one place to the other. For instance, you all know, you heard it and you know it, that Imperial College is a great example of fantastic success in terms of innovation and impacting the economy of this country and the world. So why is a place like Imperial College so successful? And let me tell you my ideas about that. First, something that we tend to forget, especially people in academia, is that the success is highly dependent on the entire educational system. You know, people in California speak a lot about the Stanford, the Berkeley, the Caltech. However, the success of California in innovation and in creating jobs and new industries is not based only on those 3 or 4 elite institutions, including USC. I'm glad that you're USC graduates. But also on a network of institutions, 4-year programs, vocational training, 2-year colleges, and so on. It is an entire educational system. So the success is not due only to the elite institutions we tend to think a lot about and talk a lot about, but also to the entire system. And I think it is important to pay attention to that. But now, looking at universities, obviously the key to success is talent. You need talented people. The most productive innovation ecosystem are driven by creative, talented, and well-trained people. In addition, many of these people do conduct their work in university research laboratories, making those universities, as I said earlier, essential for a healthy innovation pipeline. Now, top talented people now are found everywhere in the world. It has become a borderless world when it comes to talent. And my impression by being involved in the recruitment of people for the past 20 years is that the top talent, they want to have an impact, and they are becoming more and more internationally minded and entrepreneurial in spirit. People are willing to move for the right opportunities. It is true for all industries, and including higher education. The reason that universities like Imperial College, KAUST, Caltech, and others are focused on attracting the best talent from anywhere in the world, I think is based on a number of reasons, from the aspirational reasons to the very pragmatic one. The research environment in science is very competitive and most often requires teams with diverse skills. If you want the best team, it is crucial to develop and nurture your own people. However, there is often the need to complement them with people from other places. A research university with a focus on science and technology view the recruitment of international students and faculty as an essential ingredient to their success in fostering discoveries, to get a diverse environment. Also, as institutions recognize the value of international activities to achieve global competency of their graduates, they seek to attract talent from abroad as part of their strategy to internationalize their academic environment and curriculum and to expand campus diversity. I think the EU universities in the UK and in Western Europe have been especially active in that area. Now, in other situations, to be very pragmatic, budgetary needs are also leading universities to recruit international students, to benefit from the financial health of their institution. It is happening currently in the US in many state institutions. So this goes from the aspirational to being very pragmatic. Now, this leads me to maybe share with you some data on the mobility of students in the world. And the estimates show that there were about 4 million internationally mobile students in 2012 who moved to different parts of the world. Those are UNESCO-based data. And a doubling of the number of students from 2000. So a dramatic increase in about 10 years in terms of the number of students studying abroad. It is true that the United States and Europe remain priority destinations. But mobility trends suggest a more complex flow of talent throughout the world with increasing competition for students, faculty, and researchers in new regions, such as Asia and the Middle East. In fact, there are a number of people who study those trends and suggest that we are moving away from the trend that was referred to in the past as brain drain to one that may be more of a global brain circulation, a phenomenon defined by a flow of talent that is multidirectional, where talent is being drawn to both established and emerging universities, and where the graduates, the students, may return to their home country or move to another country after they graduate or stay in a country where they studied. So this idea of moving from the brain drain idea to more of a brain circulation, which I think is maybe a bit more appealing than brain drain. So let me show you a few more of those. I find those data to be quite interesting. Let me show you a few more here. For instance, this slide here, again from the UNESCO in 2012, try to show the student mobility for the US. And clearly, in the US, there is a very significant number of inbound students coming to the US, and a much smaller outbound students. And students from the US, going to the US, are coming from China, India, Korea. But Saudi Arabia is fourth now, with, I believe, this past year, almost 50,000 students from Saudi Arabia in the kingdom, in the US. So fourth after China, India, and Korea. And now, for American students, when they go and seek degrees outside the US, the top destination remain Western Europe, with the UK, Germany, France, as well as Canada, I should say, being the top destination. But clearly in the US, much more inbound than outbound. Now, Saudi Arabia, the top outbound destination is the United States, as I said earlier, followed by the UK and Australia. And I think I heard today that the UK, it's about 10,000 or more students from Saudi Arabia here. And in fact, KAUST now is starting to contribute to that flow because, as you heard already, our students are from all over the world, including Saudi Arabia, the largest number being Saudi Arabia, about 35%, but we bring students from all over the world. What is interesting for Saudi Arabia, when I look at those numbers, is in fact that the number of inbound students is about the same as outbound students. If you look at at the data, Saudi Arabia draws a considerable number of students from the Middle East. Now, same piece of information for the UK here. Top student mobility include destination the US, France, and Ireland. And after those two destinations, Malaysia, Germany, and Australia. And the majority of students who receive degrees from in the UK universities are from China, India, Nigeria, and Germany, followed by Ireland and the US. So I'm showing you those slides because I think they're interesting. They show that this idea of a flow in both directions, in some time relatively equal for inbound and outbound, in some cases like the US not equal, but it really does emphasize that, that idea of brain circulation, which is increasing dramatically, as I said, going from 2 million students to more than 4 million nowadays. Now, with global competition for top talent and the increased domestic investments in higher education by emerging economies, the ability to attract or to retain talented students will continue to drive policy debate at national level. It's not a new question. It's always a prominent theme throughout the history of universities. But now, because of our interconnected, globalized world, top talent, and the adjective top is important here, have unlimited paths through which they can develop their career. In essence, talented people like you are empowered to shop around for the best opportunities that will maximize your interest and impact. Let me emphasize this by a quote that I love and use quite often, and it's from the anthropologist Margaret Mead, who said that never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. And it is, if you want, if I can summarize it, my guiding philosophy when recruiting people. It was my philosophy when I was in California at Caltech. It is now my philosophy when I'm doing the same at KAUST in Saudi Arabia. It is not necessarily the number of people which is the most important. It is how talented they are that makes a big difference. My experience has been, in fact, that the backbone of any great university, including Imperial College, is obviously its people, but more importantly, even at those great universities, there is always a special group of people within those people. And some people are using the 80-20 rule. It doesn't matter if it's 80-20, 70-30, 90-10, but there is always a special group of people among already very special people, and people who tend to be truly creative, inventive, curious, and sometimes quirky individual. And so attracting and investing in the right people for your institution is not simply important, it does define great universities. At the universities I worked at, including Georgia Tech, Caltech, and now KAUST, I'm always placing my efforts on people who demonstrate an enterprising spirit, an unusual way of thinking. I think Dr. Gast mentioned to you the out of the box already, very similar remarks. Individuals who embrace high-risk approaches to problem solving, in fact, that sometimes others may dismiss. And then, once you have those talented people on board, you have to create an environment that empowers them to be successful. When I recruit talented people, you need to understand and evaluate what drives their passion. In my conversation with faculty candidates, it is always important to know why they believe the research that they want to do, their research interests, are important. What are the important questions in science and technology they are trying to solve? What will it make a difference? And I always try to emphasize and find out and encourage them to aim high, to really solve important questions. Also, an essential question, it doesn't matter where you are, Imperial, Caltech, or elsewhere, I always ask why KAUST or why Caltech would be a good place for you to conduct the research. You have to get a sense that they have an appreciation for why is the opportunity important to them. And in the answer, I look for curiosity and a certain level of confidence which reflects what they believe in their idea. This brings me to, and I will come to the slide in a minute. I'm a bit early here. Wait a moment. Brings me to another ingredient of success at great universities. And it may believe I oversimplify, but it is curiosity. It is being curious. At highly innovative universities, there is a synergy between the drive for discovery and a desire to address important societal problems. There is synergy between passion for impact and at the same time working in harmony with curiosity. It is hard to prescribe, as such characteristics may be in fact inherent in the people you recruit. It is important to appreciate that talented people are not simply seeking out an academic home. Rather, they look for an ecosystem that offers the best opportunities to conduct their research, contribute to their fields, connect with other great talent, and have impact. In essence, I think more and more very talented people from all over the world are becoming internationally minded entrepreneurs. And by entrepreneur, I mean an enterprising individual, a creative person who is interested in high-risk, high-impact work and will dedicate an enormous amount of energy, passion, and tenacity to achieve his or her goals. I feel bad that the word entrepreneur very often is used only to think of somebody who is going to make lots of money out of the new companies. Think more of it as an enterprising individual. An entrepreneur is first a creative person, a person who believes in an interesting idea. Maybe the money will come, but being creative and curious is the first part, and then to be willing to dedicate an enormous amount of energy and passion to what you are trying to do. So, come back to my slide here. If I can use an analogy, the laboratories of the scientists in the universities at Imperial College or KAUST is in fact like the garage workshops of Silicon Valley, and it is best exemplified by this one that you may recognize. It is the garage of Steve Jobs when he first created the Apple computer with Steve Wozniak in 1976. So in these garages, those laboratories of our faculty, we must celebrate the role of our faculty not only as scientists, but also as pioneer, inventor, and leader. We must also embrace what I'm going to now likely shock you with the words I will use. In those universities, in those laboratories, we must also embrace the usefulness of useless knowledge. If there is something you remember from my talk, remember curiosity and the usefulness of useless knowledge. And you may think that the president emeritus of Caltech and the president of KAUST is crazy when he's talking to you about the usefulness of useless knowledge. However, I may be crazy, but I'm not the first one. And in fact, the quote I have here is from Dr. Abraham Flexner in 1939, many years ago. He was the founder of the Princeton Institute for Advanced Studies. And in 1939, he wrote a very interesting paper, which I encourage all of you to read. It's still important to read today. And in that paper, he looked at a number of examples. And the most interesting example that you will relate to is the one of wireless telecommunications, the radio and wireless telecommunication, invented by, obviously, Marconi, the inventor of the radio. But Flexner showed that Marconi was able to invent wireless telecommunication based on the work of Maxwell 40 or 50 years ago, who developed the equations for electromagnetic waves. And then the work of Hertz a few years later, who showed, in fact, how you could create and measure such waves. Now, if you look at the history, in those two cases, Maxwell and Hertz made those great discoveries, and people, including fellow scientists, said, so what? Okay. Didn't see anything exciting in that. 35 to 40 years later, Marconi showed that appeared to be useless knowledge could in fact be very, very useful. And I think if all of you, I see some of you, in fact, right now working on your iPhone, all of you will likely agree that this useless knowledge was in fact very, very useful. The point here I'm trying to make is that being curious, looking at things that may appear to be useless, is fundamental to the well-being and the success of great institutions and of the world, because that useless knowledge is become very handy at different times. So I encourage you to read the paper by Abraham Flexner and to remember that there is a president of a university who told you about the usefulness of useless stuff. Now, that brings me to another feature, if you want, for greatness at a university. And it's one, again, a little bit difficult to explain. It is based also on culture in many ways. And is to promote an enabling culture that supports both curiosity-driven and problem or goal-oriented research. Curiosity-driven research doesn't provide instant gratification, the example of Maxwell. It is risky and often long-term, but also the source of most great discoveries with the potential to spur dramatic technological advances. At the same time, we have problems today, problems in society to look at. So you must also support a research that is more focused on solving critical issues faced by the world. And if you look again at the great institutions in the world, and again focusing on those dedicated to science and technology at large, universities like Imperial College, Caltech, MIT, KAUST, and others, I think they find the ways to promote and leverage both the coexistence of the free-spirited, curiosity-driven research and a more focused, goal-driven research, which translates science and discoveries into processes, products, and technologies. You may ask yourself what conditions lead to game-changing innovation. And there is a number of studies on that. One study I like very much on innovation that focused on the fields of genetics and nanoscience found that, coming back to my earlier thing, truly creative discoveries, both in mission-driven and curiosity-driven research, were made again by bright and curious minds. That you can show that the most important discoveries are done by a small group of extremely talented people, and people who had the freedom to define and pursue interest both within and outside of broadly defined long-term research agenda. Another key enabling factor is the availability of flexible and sustained resources to assure that researchers can focus their energy and passion on important questions, both curiosity-driven and goal-driven. Achieving this balance and making judicious R&D investment is not a simple task, but successful institutions and their sponsors find mechanisms to fine-tune their research portfolio and achieve that balance. I was listening yesterday to my colleagues at Imperial College who just went through a major exercise. I forgot the name, but it is to evaluate the quality of the research at UK universities. Obviously, Imperial is coming out with flying colors, doing very well. But they went through the process, not because they had to, but the most important output of the process for them is to assure that over the coming years, they will have the resources they need to provide their colleagues with the support, the long-term support they need to pursue their activities. So I'm not telling you it's easy, it's a difficult exercise, but the great institutions find ways to achieve it. Now, KAUST is taking such an approach, and we are trying to promote a balanced investments in purely curiosity, out-of-the-box, free-thinking research, at the same time focusing major activities on more long-term or more goal, mission-oriented work, and trying to address important issues that the world is facing with a strong thrust and strong focus on 4 areas: water, food, energy, and the environment. And instead of going through those 4 topics, let me just mention the work of a few KAUST faculty and students to give you a sense of what we do. Now, the first one I will mention is Professor Osman Baker, who is an assistant professor at KAUST, and he's a rising star in the field of material science. He arrived at KAUST in 2009, and has focused his work on solar energy. And he's a kind of person who is always asking why things are the way they are. He's a very curious mind, driven by curiosity. And the last few years, he has worked on perovskite, which is, in a sense, a very common material, but one which is emerging as a great alternative for generating energy with solar cells. In fact, his work is really at the leading edge in that area, and talk about on-time delivery. Yesterday, on January 30th, he and his colleagues have a major paper in Science that is listed here. And what is very interesting, his work is really fundamental, but we all believe that it can major impact on the future generation of solar cells. Dr. Baker is a very interesting case too for us. He's from Saudi Arabia, and in fact, as a child, he lived in Tuval, the small village next to where we are now. His family is from Jeddah, and he has been with us from the beginning of KAUST. So it's a great success for her. Let me now mention another person who is Professor Mohamed Edaoudi, who has created the instrumentation to fabricate and test metal organic framework. And those new materials, he's not the only one in the world working on that, but he's viewed as being the leading expert in the world. In fact, he's by far the most highly cited person in that field. And it's a new generation of material that can have major application for clean energy alternatives and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Now, another person I would like to mention to you is Dr. Mark Tester. And Mark is an example of a person, the previous two are more the curious-driven type people. Mark came to KAUST to us 2 years ago with a mission. His focus, he wants to find ways to produce plants that can really grow well in a salty, hot, harsh environment, without obviously having to create an enormous infrastructure around them of cooling, of loss of. You have to do it in a very energy efficient way. And he's driven by that vision. That's why he came to KAUST, because we are a place where he can try to achieve his goal. And he's working with us at KAUST, but also he's doing his field work right outside Dubai under the sponsorship of the International Center for Biosaline Agriculture. So an example of a very strongly focused person on a mission, but doing great fundamental science to achieve his goal. Now, let me mention a couple of our students. Dr. Jessica Baumeister, she just finished her PhD in 2013 with a focus on the timing and synchrony of coral reproduction in the Central Red Sea. And she discovered, classified a new coral species, which will be called Cephastria kausti. And that new species will be formally released, announced to the world later this year. When you look at that quick video, if I were much younger, I know what kind of research I would do for my studies. It's quite exciting to be doing work in the Red Sea. Let me mention you another one, Dr. Mohamed Zidane. And Mohamed is a PhD candidate in our sensors group in electrical engineering. And his research interests are in memristor, chaotic systems, ray tracing, and computer arithmetic. And he's doing excellent work. I think he's going to conclude his PhD in a couple of years. But what is also interesting about him, to show you how good a person he is that he recently received a fellowship from the IEEE Circuits and Systems Society, called CAS. And so it happens that society, every year, they give 2 such scholarships worldwide, 2 worldwide, and they typically receive something like in excess of 40,000 applications. So there is an incredible filtering system, and he was selected as one of them. It is the first time in the Middle East, and one of the very few times, in fact, outside the US and Western Europe. So I think it's it shows you the kind of interesting person we do have at KAUST. So I could share many other stories, but time is getting short, so let me just tell you a few more things about KAUST. In his vision for KAUST, King Abdullah articulated his highest aspirations for faculty, students, staff, and partners. He wanted us to become one of the world's great institutions of research. He wanted KAUST to educate and train future generations of scientists, engineers, and technologists, and that it foster, on the basis of merit and excellence, collaboration and cooperation with other great research universities in the private sector. And to achieve that, we have a number of attributes, values attributes, that I've already mentioned in some way. And we are trying to achieve that fine-tuning I mentioned earlier of supporting both curiosity-driven and goal-oriented research. I was mentioned by Dr. Gast, we have what I call a global DNA. In two ways, we are an international community. We have people from more than 100 countries on the campus, and it is the most international environment I've been in. I spent most of my career in the US at universities which are international in many ways, but nothing at the scale of KAUST, where we have people from all over the world among our students and staff. It has also a global DNA in the fact that we were created in establishing a number of partnerships across the world, and those continue, including the one with Imperial College, and we do encourage our faculty to work with the best outside of the university. We try to provide an environment, a very flat organization, an environment where faculty and students from different disciplines are placed together in their academic divisions or in research centers. To give you an example, what our engineering and applied science program, you may find some mechanical engineer, but you also find some physicists, some chemists, chemical engineers, and other disciplines placed together. So we try to have a cross-disciplinary environment for our faculty, and we provide the best laboratory facilities people can have, because we believe that it is the way to compete and to enable our people to be the best. We want them to come and high in their work, and we support them by providing the best facilities. And what we try to do is to commit to them long-term sustained support. When I recruit faculty for KAUST, my main, as I mentioned to you earlier, my main question is to find out if they are aiming high enough, if they have a great idea they want to go after, and if they have a great idea, we commit to supporting them next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if it takes 10 years. And I think it's a great environment to be placed in. So it is an exciting place, and I think also, I'm repeating myself in a sense, but it is also a place where the community, people are working, living, playing together, and it is really a group of people of the world, which is very exciting to be part of. Now, as was mentioned by Dr. Gast, we are doing already extremely well after only a few years of existence. We are barely 5 years old, and it's quite amazing how well we are doing. And you know, in academia, we always look at things like publications, citations, and a number of different things. And I believe myself that they are not sufficient to represent what a person is about or a university is about, but there are criteria you need to look at. So it is interesting that after only a few years, we have more than 4,000 publications, but close to 5 now, I believe. We have starting to have significant number of patent applications. It takes years to apply, but now those things are going to come out. And interestingly also, we have about 30 or so new startup companies only after 5 years of existence. Now, looking more at the scientific impact, we look very much like anybody does at publications and citations. Again, 2 parameters worth considering. And I hope you can see this here. And this is things that people in academia do a lot. On the horizontal axis, I have publications. In fact, publications in top 10 journals. So the percentage of your publication in top 10 journals. And on the top axis, I have citations per publication. It's great to publish, but if nobody reads your paper, it doesn't say much. So you look at how often you're being cited. And every dot represents a university. Just since there will be some Imperial College people here, you will notice that I didn't place Imperial College. So we'll tell you, I can tell you where you are. You're doing very well, don't worry. But if you look at those universities, they are from all over the world. Some are long-term established universities like Harvard, MIT, Berkeley, US elite universities. Some are very well known in Europe, ETH Zurich, Carnegie, and some are from KAUST from Korea, from Singapore. You have major US universities like Georgia Tech, Carnegie Mellon, Lehigh, and so on. And I should mention, because I'm a president emeritus of Caltech, but the one at the top here is called Caltech. That's where I come from. So, now, where is KAUST after only 5 years? KAUST is here. It is. If you look at the institutions around it, it is truly exceptional, especially given that you are a very highly focused university in a small number of disciplines. And besides that, we did some more detailed studies in areas where we are focusing a lot, like material science and energy, where we are really among the best in the world already. So I think it's a great accomplishment, and I think it is why, coming back to what we said earlier, we will help achieve the legacy of the late King Abdullah. Now, to conclude, I think those are the key ingredients for a truly productive innovation ecosystem built around universities. You need to have unusual and entrepreneurial talent, an international DNA. You have to provide the right environment, and it is not easy. Sometimes it is your own culture. I believe strongly that you have to provide that balance between curiosity and goal-driven research. You have to provide unparalleled facilities and sustained support to your faculty, students, and researchers. Now, those characteristics are essential, but there is one additional point I would like to stress, is that ultimately success and the contribution of research universities are not through the research only, they are through their graduates, through you. If we educate students and engage them in an environment that stresses excellence, curiosity, invention, integrity, and a passion for doing things that matter, we serve society well. You, majority of you here are students, you represent the greatest success of a university. I hope you will keep that in mind as you continue your academic journey in the UK and back in Saudi Arabia. And whether you continue your journey at Imperial College, at KAUST, at Caltech, at any of those universities, or if you become a giant in industry, I encourage you to follow your curiosity and passion in life. You are clearly a talented and entrepreneurial group of students. You are part of the future of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and therefore also a beacon of knowledge for future generations. The creation of KAUST was a gift of King Abdullah to the kingdom and the world. Your knowledge, your talents, and contributions will also be a great gift to the nation and the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much for an inspiring presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, we now open the floor for questions. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask your question. We'll start on that side. Go ahead, please. Just wait, please. Can we get the mic?
Program or researchers, do you host them in your labs? Can they access your materials? That's one of the questions. The other questions, I'm curious, what is your say regarding the criticism of Science magazine to King Abdulaziz University? I know they criticize them, and now they actually achieving very well in benchmarking journals, citations. Thank you.
Okay, two questions. The first one, the answer is yes. We have many partnerships outside the kingdom, but also many partnerships within the kingdom. If you are interested, in fact, Mr. Nadmi and Nasser and Nadja could give you details after the meeting here. But we have a number of research programs which were established with other universities in the kingdom, including King Abdulaziz University, and also with KFUPM and others. So that's already in place. Also, what is maybe more exciting to me than the research partnership is that some of our graduates, PhD graduates and postdoctoral associates, leave KAUST and go and teach and do research in those universities. So that's really in place. You mentioned Masdar. I believe we have some, what I would call a one-to-one connection. Maybe some of our faculty have colleagues there, but we don't have anything special. Now, I rarely try to, when I'm asked a question about another university, I always try to be very positive. So I want to be cautious in terms of your next question. You asked me what is my view of that. And I believe you relate to the idea of having many faculty from other universities where you're adjunct, some kind of adjunct faculty and everything. My answer to that is simply, it is great to have partnership. It is great to have people from other places working with you. Just make sure every time that it is a meaningful partnership. If you do that, you will be successful. I can tell you that the people who work with us, there are some from Imperial College, when they come to visit with us, yes, they can enjoy maybe a trip for half a morning to go enjoy snorkeling on the Red Sea, but they have to work hard while they are on the KAUST campus. So that's my answer is partnerships are great, make sure they are meaningful, and the rest will take care of itself.
Thank you. Two more questions.
Saeed Sheikh, a PhD student from Imperial College. Is there any future trend to start undergraduate studies in KAUST? Thank you.
First, I want to congratulate you for being a student at Imperial College. That's very nice. What are you studying, by the way? Chemical engineering. It's a great place to study chemical engineering. And I mean it. I do know the program quite well, so you're in a great place here. In the short term, no. Starting a new university anywhere in the world is already a major undertaking. Doing it like we are doing at KAUST to really become very quickly, if you want, a very significant player in research, I think requires an enormous amount of energy and focus. And we also want to do it in being an international environment. So I think for the time being and for a number of years, we have to, if you want, learn to walk before we run. So the answer is no. Right now, the focus is on graduate programs only.
Thank you. One more question on this side? No?
Over there.
Okay.
There is a lady over there. Over there.
Okay. Yeah.
Actually, it's yours.
Wafa Abu Talib from University of Cambridge. My question is, are you planning to add some other disciplines, such as medical technology? Thank you.
Again, Cambridge. And I assume that you are doing medical science since you are, okay. Again, same answer as the previous one in a sense. I cannot tell you what it will be 10, 15, 20 years from now, but it is very important for us to first develop great programs in a few critical areas. So the answer for the short term, no, except that we do medical science and medical research in the same way. You take Dr. Alice Gass was at MIT for many years. I was at Caltech for many years. Those two universities don't have a medical school. However, they do a large amount of work related to health. to cancer research, for instance, a partnership with hospitals and medical programs. You know, many of the needs in those disciplines relate to material science. You hear a lot about the application of nanoscience to medicine. So we have professors at KAUST who are involved in that in the same way that they would be at a place like MIT or Caltech without having a medical school. Will KAUST have a medical school 30 years, 50 years from now? Maybe, I don't know. Imperial College didn't have one until about, 12 years ago, 14 years ago. So, but if you want to do some great bioengineering, biomedical group, please come to KAUST. We will have some great opportunity for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.